Hello and welcome. I'm Lorianne Lumby with Authentic Freedom Academy, and this is our Friday spiritual service. Today is Friday, August 20th, 2021. And our theme today is severing cords and severing ties. And as we begin, I'm inviting us to begin with the Ho'oponopono prayer. And this is a 4-phrase mantra that I use and share with my clients and students. And the power of this prayer is profound because it really gives us an opportunity to clear up any negative attachments that we might have between ourselves and others. And I use it most especially in situations where guilt or shame are triggered, because that guilt and shame and blame are all things that happen between human beings. And the intention of the Ho'oponopono prayer is to clear that negative attachment. And in clearing it for ourselves, it also helps to facilitate the clearing of that for others. And so before we begin that prayer, I just invite you to close your eyes. And to just take a moment and acknowledge the presence and action, the experiences that you have had in your life of being conditioned by guilt, of being the target of blame, or being triggered by the feeling of shame. And as we recognize the presence of those negative attachments in our lives, we offer toward ourselves and to the places where we might be holding the energy of those attachments, we say this 4-phrase prayer. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. We remember that in saying these words, we are saying them to ourselves. We are saying these words specifically to the place where we might be carrying guilt, blame, or shame in our own bodies, where we might be carrying the wound of shame, the wound of blame, the wound of guilt. Knowing that as long as we carry that wound, we are subject to that wound being activated. And as we work towards healing and freeing ourselves of that wound, we are no longer able to be activated and therefore no longer able to be manipulated by an individual or institution that might use guilt, shame, or blame to control us. So we say again to ourselves, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Let us repeat that prayer within our own mind and in our own hearts silently for the next few minutes as we allow that healing to take root. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Now I invite you to hear these words from Scripture in preparation for our lesson today on severing cords and severing ties. The first reading is from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 12. While Jesus was still talking to the crowd, his mother and brothers stood outside, wanting to speak with him. Someone told him, "Your mother and brothers are standing outside wanting to speak to you." Jesus replied, "Who is my mother? And who are my brothers?" Pointing to his disciples, he said, "Here are my mothers and my brothers. For whoever does the will of God is my brother and sister and mother." From Luke's Gospel, chapter 14. Many people were traveling with Jesus. He said to them, "If you come to me, but will not leave your family, you cannot be my follower. You must love me more than your father, mother, wife, children, brothers and sisters, even more than your own life. Whoever will not carry the cross that is given to them when they follow me cannot be my follower. And from Luke chapter 9. Jesus said to another man, "Follow me." But the man said, "Let me go and bury my father first." But Jesus said to him, let the dead bury their own dead. You must go and tell about God's kingdom. Another man said, "I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go and say goodbye to my family." Jesus said, "Anyone who begins to plow a field but looks back is not prepared for God's kingdom." These lessons of Jesus might sound harsh, they might sound severe, they might seem impossible even. The reason that these lessons seem impossible to us is because what Jesus is speaking against here is societal conditioning. Conditioning that tells us what we should do, how we should act, where our priorities should be. In each of these examples, the societal conditioning that is explicitly being challenged is that of responsibility to family. Responsibilities that have been defined by the prevailing culture. In this case, a hierarchical, patriarchal culture that has laid out specific rules about conduct within and toward one's family. These rules are based on a set of expectations as to what makes a good son, what makes a good daughter, what makes a good husband or wife or mother or sibling. In each of these cases, Jesus is inviting people into the fullness of the kingdom and inviting them into a process that will help them experience inner freedom. He's inviting them into the experience of union in love. He is inviting them into his own understanding of the peaceable kingdom, the kingdom of God. That inner experience of contentment, of freedom, of joy. That inner experience that gives us the resilience that we need to move through the challenges in our lives. That inner experience that keeps us on that path of inner work, that keeps us in that journey of healing and transformation, that anchors us in that place of personal accountability. In the kingdom, as Jesus understood it, there is no room for shoulds. There is no room for controlling conditioning. There's no room for outside manipulation. There's no room for blame or shame or guilt. In order to experience the kingdom as Jesus knew it himself, and as he taught others to know it, we cannot be attached to or controlled by our past conditioning. If our conditioning says your first duty is to family, but the path of love invites us elsewhere, we must break the ties of that which holds us to that conditioning, to those rules, so that we can authentically and with integrity follow our soul's calling, our soul's path. And in that, we often have to do the difficult work of severing ties. In this severing of ties, I'm not saying we close the door on those we love or the people that are in our lives. Instead, it's about closing the door to those strands of manipulation, those strands of conditioning, those chains of imprisonment. Every single one of us have relationships, past or present, have been in situations or experiences where we have been told how we should be, how we shouldn't be. We've been told the expectations of our behaviors. We have had people condition us through guilt, through shame. We have been the projection of someone's blame. And the severing that we are invited into at this time is the severing of those cords. In this, we have the opportunity to recognize when someone else is trying to manipulate us through guilt or projecting their own guilt on us and trying to manipulate us through that. We have an opportunity to recognize when someone is trying to blame us for their discomfort or shame us into a certain behavior. We are also given the opportunity to recognize where we are doing that to ourselves. Those times when we said, well, I really should do this. Don't really want to, but I should. And recognizing the strands of the conditioning that puts us in those cycles of making decisions based on should instead of where our heart is leading us. So the cords and the ties that we are being invited to sever at this time are those cords of guilt and shame and blame and projection and expectations. And the Ho'oponopono prayer that we did in the beginning of today's gathering is the perfect tool for doing that. First thing we have to do is recognize the pattern. To say, oh, there's that guilt demon. Ooh, there's that shame demon. Oh, I'm beginning to feel blame, like someone's blaming me for something. feeling those cords of manipulation, something pulling at our gut that doesn't feel loving or kind or peaceful. Or the anxiety or compulsive thinking that comes forth when we're trying to make a decision for our soul, but our mind is trying to keep us trapped in those conditioned responses, conditioned to guilt, conditioned to shame. We're being given an opportunity to recognize that first, because in naming the demon, we've done 99% of the work. Oh, there's that guilt demon. There's that shame demon. There's that blame demon. And then making the concerted decision to say no to that, to make a decision in the other direction, a direction for ourselves, a direction that gives us peace and joy and relieves our anxiety. Saying yes to that which is expansive and life-giving to us, instead of the constriction that we feel when we're saying yes to someone else's expectations. So naming the demon, making the decision not to get controlled by that demon, and then doing the work of healing that wound. Because the only reason we're triggered in the first place is because we're carrying that wound of shame or guilt. And the Ho'oponopono prayer is the perfect tool for clearing that out of our space, clearing it out of our being. And in doing so, not only freeing ourselves of that wound, but freeing those who might be trying to manipulate us. Now, the one word of, not caution, awareness that I want to share in that is that when that cord is snapped, we feel free, but the person on the other end might not feel so good because they don't have you under their control anymore. So there might be a kickback. There might be a reaction. But the more you hold your ground and the more you say yes to yourself, the more that frees the other person to either take responsibility for their wound and begin to be empowered within themselves, or they'll go find somebody else to guilt and shame and manipulate. Neither of which is any of our business. Name the demon, say no to the demon, heal the wound. And soon you will be feeling more and more free, and there will be more space inside of you for the love, the contentment, and the joy that is present within that kingdom. Finally, I want to share with you our support goddess for the day. And from the Kali Oracle deck, this is Baglamukti. Baglamukti. She is one of the manifestations of Kali. And as you see in her hand, she has a large severed tongue, a cord that she freed, that she cut from a demon that was plaguing her. And this is the message of Baglamukti. Burning golden light of divine protection. Baglamukti arrests the flow of negativity. She is divine intervention and sacred activity. She transforms our karma from that which hinders our joy to that which creates true happiness and bliss for ourselves and all beings. As you seek refuge in her, you are protected from gossip, slander, and any form of negativity from others. A positive turning of the tide of fortune is predicted.